All right, Jerry, if you want to get started, go ahead.
Okay, so do we need to do the roll call, or is you've got that?
I have marked who's currently
Who's there?
here, so yeah.
So we
that's good
need
enough for me.
to approve the minutes from August to, what was the, I got it in front of me. I don't know what the date was. 2021, August 2021. Is there any additions or corrections to that? No? Is there any opposed to approving those minutes?
Nope.
Okay.
Move
All
to
those in-
approve.
Do we want to do all in favor or just oppose? All in favor. I guess, Ray. Okay, they're
I
approved.
wasn't there. I'm not voting.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I can't vote either.
Yeah.
The three of you were.
Why can't you vote if you weren't there? You can review the minutes.
Well, you can review the minutes, but you can't verify that that's what was said.
That they're correct.
Okay, thanks for that. Didn't know that. Got it.
Oh, okay. So we will move on to new business, strategic plan. You want to speak to that, Sarah?
All right, so I have a little presentation for the 3 items on here. So let me try to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great.
Whoops.
All right.
There you are.
All right. So as you know, the strategic plan end date, it was a 5-year strategic plan from July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2022. So ultimately, there were 7 areas to focus on in the strategic plan. And there are 3.5 areas that we've mostly met the metrics in it. And those are early literacy, reading, viewing, and listening for pleasure, lifelong learning, and then half of family literacy. But there are 3.5 areas that we haven't met yet. Information fluency. So to meet that one, we would have to teach information classes for adults, high school students, and middle school students, which obviously these last 2 years, we haven't really had the opportunity. Half of family literacy, we started English or a reading tutoring program with kids in the 1st through 3rd grades that haven't been able to meet in a couple of years almost. We haven't held civics programs in that time or work with seniors on computer skills. So those are the areas of the strategic plan that we have not yet met. So my question to the board, because the City Council originally approved our strategic plan, is should the library extend our strategic plan for 2 years or create a new plan? So I've sort of listed pros for extending the plan and pros for creating a new plan there. And I just wanted to ultimately have some discussion about which direction you feel that the library board feels that we need to go. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see each other's faces as we chat a little bit about that. Does anybody have any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I do, Sarah. Just overarching, not with getting into any of the sections and portions specifically. Obviously, COVID threw us a mega loop on our goals and objectives. How do you feel we're sitting like right now in reference to the plan as far as, oh, we're so far off the mark of what we were aiming for that, yeah, or, you know, we're quite a ways towards meeting those goals, you know?
The goals we have not yet met. Hi, Cheyenne. Like the tutoring program, we did start it. We didn't get any surveys back about it. So I mean, I don't know where we are there ultimately. And we haven't had a chance to do any tutoring with kids. So the information fluency, we have not had any, well, we had a few middle school classes come to the library, and we surveyed them. So we did a little bit. We didn't have any high school students, and we do have a few adults that took computer classes or got one-on-one help with tech issues. So we have a little bit of information about that one. The civics programs, we held, I think, 1 or 2 before the pandemic started. And they were very low attendance. I think we had maybe 3 people at our misinformation class. So of course, everybody who attended filled out a survey, but that's only 3 people for the community of 12,000. And what was the last one? Oh, it was getting emails, actually working with seniors on their computer skills. And we did have a few seniors work one-on-one with librarians, but there were, very few. We didn't do any classes after a while. Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, I was going to say, could you repose for Cheyenne the question that you're having us consider?
Yes. So Cheyenne, what we're talking about is, we have a strategic plan that ends in June of 2022. And my question to the group is, because the City Council approved our strategic plan, I feel like I need to go back to them with what we're going to do. Should we extend the strategic plan by 2 years, or should we just say we're finished with it and start doing a new planning process for a new strategic plan?
Okay, thank you for the context. I apologize. I'm at the cheerleading gym right now. I was like being pulled by 8-year-olds.
So Sarah, I mean, my gut instinct is you lost 2 years, so stay with the strategic plan. So the areas where you didn't feel that you got the traction, the 3 you've just mentioned, you didn't have very much time to get it started. Do you feel that those are still worthwhile goals, just those? Or not worthwhile goals, let me speak to misinformation. Meeting community needs, I guess would be a better way of saying that.
It's hard to really know what the community needs are right now with everything that's happened. We're seeing, and this is later in our meeting, but we're seeing less foot traffic in the library than we had before the pandemic started. I sort of assumed that when school started, the teenagers would immediately be back to the library after school, and they're not. There's only a few coming in. So, I don't know. I don't know if there's still community needs, really.
I think the pandemic is not over, as we know, and we're just like easing out of yet another surge. So I actually think it's quite reasonable that foot traffic would be down, that people are still hesitant. I don't know. Those 3 goals seem important things for a library to sponsor in a community. And I guess I would say that the pandemic just disrupted everything, and I'd suggest staying with it and trying. As you say, a lot more about how things went, and then just the end of 2 years we'd know, because with any luck we'll be out of the pandemic come 2024.
Bethany?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think sticking with the strategic plan, since we did sort of lose all that time. And I think like the school district right now, like the focus is just connection. Like they're just trying to like figure out what families need, even in the school district level. And then so I think just like sticking with our course and getting back on track And I think the foot traffic in the library, I agree, like the pandemic's not over, but I think too, especially with kids, like they're wearing their mask all day. And I know my daughter and her friends struggle with like
Mhm.
going out and doing something else after school where they have to wear their mask again. Like
Mhm.
they're still sort of figuring that out. So sometimes I'll pick up my daughter and be like, oh, we're gonna go here. And she's like, but I need a break. Like,
Mhm.
so I'm just wondering if some of that will sort of start, changing. I think they'll start hanging out at the library more once they're kind of more used to this whole thing. But anyway, it's one thought I had about that. But I think overall, yeah, just focusing on the connection and
Mhm.
I love the programs that you've been able to do throughout this and just bringing back what we can. And I don't know, it's almost like we need a do-over for everything.
Mhm. Yeah.
Heather.
Kathy, you had something, I think.
I did,
prior.
but go ahead, Heather.
You did too.
Oh, well, this kind of brings up what Bethany's addressing is with regard to the foot traffic and so on, is that I was talking with Sarah earlier about this today, and that I just think there's so many folks that there's like so much to track as far as information and status and what's the latest on so many things, right? That it feels to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, Sarah, that there are a lot of people that don't even know that we're back open.
Yeah.
They don't even know that they can walk in to the library and check out, and they can do everything that they could do before. They're just wearing a mask. So I
There's
you
a-
know, yeah, I really would like to emphasize beefing up our communication and connecting with the community to really get them aware of we're here, we're rocking it, and we're available for serving you for what your needs are that we can provide.
And maybe even like specifically putting out like people may know the library's open, but may not know that they can hang out there now, that the chairs are back and the tables are back and that's allowed. So
Mhm.
But when you hang out there, you have to wear a mask. Is that correct? I still, that's still a negative not to come in there. But so the strategic plan expires this year, right? And then we have to do a
Yeah.
new one.
Next year.
June of 2022.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you did. Yeah, I would just carry these things into the next one
Mhm.
because they're good ideas. You didn't have the opportunity.
Mhm.
So the next one is going to be 2022 to 25.
Well, that's the question I was going to ask today is should we just
Oh.
extend the current strategic plan for an additional 2 years?
Mhm.
Or should we start a new strategic plan probably at this point, not in 2022, but maybe by 2023, we could have a strategic plan in place because the planning process takes a little while.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I see that there is a message from Kathleen Walker. Can someone link me into the meeting because we can't hear her?
Okay, let's see. I do see that there are 2 Dales and a Kathleen in the waiting room. So there we go. Sorry about that. I got involved in the discussion
No.
and
Easy to do.
yeah.
Thank you.
Go Kathy Drain.
Mhm.
Okay,
Kathleen Green, what
yes,
did you have to say?
my vote would be to extend for 2 years the existing plan because we have not had the opportunity, as Lynn was saying, as Bethany was saying, we haven't had the opportunity to actually attempt to complete these things due to the shutdowns, limitations, occupancy issues. And the other point I would make is I don't think that we could actually make a strategic plan right now that would address what the community expects or needs from the library because the COVID world has so upset patterns. And I don't think that we can rely on past patterns. I think we need to see
Mhm.
now that we are reopening gradually, with who knows how many variations on the theme there will be
Mhm.
in the next 9 months to a year.
Mhm.
But we're going to have to watch what patterns are and learn what new needs are.
Mhm.
And I think that we should use this next year and a half to better understand that,
Mhm.
so that the next strategic plan, in fact, can be forward-looking
Mhm.
under the new normal.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that the extra 2 years, which would bring us into
Mhm.
2024,
Mhm.
that's when we will, as you said, see just what people are looking for, and have a more informed position going into the strategic planning, and also the community is going to have a better idea of what they want, because
Mhm.
we're all just trying to figure it out at this point.
Kathleen Walker, did you have something to say?
Yeah, one of the exciting things that I have to report is that the city has just hired a new Parks and Trails Community Services Director. We don't know actually who it is yet, but we should know any day now. And so that whole program, the community services, is kind of be, under some, under construction, kind of speak. They're just refining roles and responsibilities and things like that. And I think that that's kind of a neat opportunity to kind of tie in here, figure out where they're going, and then how, I think there's going to be an opportunity for, Sarah to be working with that person to kind of figure out how to, combine or collaborate on certain services and stuff. I like everything that's been said. I think the COVID stuff does really kind of throw a wrench in it. But trying to kind of work, the one thing, I love the plan that is done. It's very good. The one thing that I guess I always like to see is, we've got some goals and objectives, but then, what are the actual programs or events or whatever they're called that are going to get there? And that's kind of where the public sees, oh, well, these programs are intended to meet these overall goals and objectives. And I'd like to see us, within, 2 years or so, as we start working on it, really kind of get to that kind of action part of it. Some of it's there with some of the actual things that you're going to do. But some of it's, delivered through programs and things like that. And so making that connection, I think, is helpful. And like I said, just having that ability to collaborate with the community services people, because there is a lot of overlap between programs, is a great opportunity, I think. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any more comments? Trina?
Yeah, I totally agree that we should extend for the 2 years and just give the plan some grace and time for it to work out. I don't know the answer to this, but I'm wondering if there's a couple areas to tweak it, because we don't know when we're going to get out of COVID. So like thinking of our scope of work and level of availability to actually make them happen, and just being very real with the plan, and looking at what's realistic. Also, I think that kind of hitting to what Kathleen Walker was saying, maybe after these next 2 years in a level, we need almost an assessment on were we successful, what worked, what didn't, because hopefully in 2 years we're done with COVID, but hopefully we can use these next 2 years to inform and kind of reevaluate what things from the COVID world we might want to keep and what things we can finally let go of. So that's kind of where my head is at.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you have, Dale, do you have something?
No, I'm just
Oh,
listening.
okay, okay. Do you think you have direction, Sarah?
Can somebody just make a motion that we extend it for 2 years and inform the city council that that's been the decision of the library board?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
So, yeah. And second, Heather.
Okay.
Okay.
May I ask a question that
Mhm.
is maybe not necessarily part of the strategic plan, but Sarah, could you, off the top of your head, can you just give us an idea where are we at as far as circulation, materials? It's a curiosity as far as how are we doing in that to kind of measure?
So let's see. I think in the last few months, it's been somewhere around 10,000 circs per month. Pre-COVID, it was more like 25,000. So we're still at probably a little bit less than half of our normal circulation.
So that's where the communication could,
Mhm.
better communication would help foster more circulation.
Yeah, that's a real challenge, because I remember you saying when the library finally opened doors or people could come in, they didn't know you were providing service that whole time.
Right.
They thought you were just
So
totally shut
we,
down.
yeah, and we sent out paper newsletters to households that had used their card in the last like 2 years, but didn't have email addresses in their accounts. And everybody who has an email address in their account got emailed sort of regular updates from Link, and then and a lot of people got our newsletter, the library newsletter. So it's tough to figure out how to reach those people who don't know that the library is open, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Sandy Post has been doing articles that talk about the library being open. Ultimately, go ahead.
I think though, communication obviously is key, and a lot of people don't know. And I mean, many of us, myself included, are suffering from COVID brain, where, you know, everything's getting a little loosey-goosey. But I know lots of folks who are still not comfortable going into public places. Young parents whose children do not have an option of a vaccine right now, and they may be going to school and they may be masked in school, but really think, well, that's enough exposure. So they're a little more reluctant to go in, and some other folks who may be vaccinated themselves do not necessarily trust that the community into which they're going is vaccinated. And so I still think it's a combination of getting the word out, but also still a real hesitancy to really accept that they can go forward. And there's not much you can do about that, that second part.
It's kind of it's an uphill battle. Yeah.
Lynn, do you think that the group that you're referring to, would they also then not opt for like a curbside pickup? I mean, would that
I'm thinking of things where, you know, people like to come in and browse the shelves. They like to bring their kids in and just, you know, sit and look at the books or whatever. And I think it's just one extra thing. On a related note, thank you to the library for partnering with Manto de Unidas 2 weekends ago. I can't remember when it was, which is a new organization up on the mountain that some folks have put together to sort of celebrate the contributions of the Latinx community on the mountain. And it was really, really successful. Where it was less successful was in story time, which was partnering with the Hoodland Library. Now, it was pouring down with rain, which meant that the event was going to be indoors. And I'm pretty certain that parents are just not maybe that comfortable yet. You know, it's just, so I just think it's, I don't know, it's just difficult at the moment.
It is.
I think that's a good reason for the 2 years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that you know, I did holds for children's books through that whole thing, but it was a lot of like mom friends are like,
Yeah.
this sucks. We always like looking at the pictures and see what it
Mhm.
looks like.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hard to find them that way. So I do think that is playing into it still. And, you know, those of us with little tiny kids, like they'll wear their mask as long as they will, and then that's it.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah, yeah.
there's definitely a lot of hesitancy still.
Yeah.
So can we call it
Okay.
to question?
Oh, yes, we got carried away here. Thank you. So all those in favor of extending the strategic plan for the next 2 years? Yeah, I guess if you
Aye.
could show me your hand. Okay. So that passes.
All right.
There's
Thank
no
you
one
so
opposed.
much.
Mhm.
Okay.
I will say if it's, you know, there's so many wonderful programs being done by the library. And where I found a lot of them was in the council reports that you do at the council meetings. And if there's some place that, you know, we can kind of advertise, I mean, and I don't know if it's in the rec events calendar or the catalog or whatever it is, but somehow, you know, kind of, and you all do a great job of advertising the individual events, but is there a place somewhere, again, that has all the different programs that you do in one place that, you know, if somebody's kind of new to the library, that they could somehow kind of check out in one place? I guess that's what I would ask for. I think that would be really helpful as you all talk about communicating all the great things that you're doing to the community. So thanks.
So Kathleen, just to speak to that real quick, I mean, on the city website, all of the upcoming programs for the library are always listed there. So anytime you go to the library page, you can look at kids programs, teen programs, adult programs. Soon we're going to have the programming discussion, and I have like almost, it's not quite a laundry list because there are lots of programs that are just one-time programs that aren't going to be in it, but I have a huge list of programs. So we can talk about then maybe about how to arrange that information in a way that makes sense for people who don't know what the library does. So we can talk about that later.
You want to talk about space? Yeah.
Yes, so I have a few more slides. I'm going to share my screen again here. And all right. So I included the entire city's space needs analysis just because it was expedient in getting the information out to you. Hopefully you didn't, well, you could have read the whole thing if you wanted to, but the library portions were the portions I really wanted you to focus on. So these were the areas in the space needs analysis that the consultants noted were not sufficient currently.
Does anybody else not have a full
I
slide?
don't have a whole
Yeah,
page.
no. Mm-mm.
Okay, okay, I can see the full.
Oh,
There
yeah.
it is. There it is.
Yes,
Oh, can you see it now?
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, good. So not enough workstation areas. So this is office space for our current staff. We need a larger capacity meeting room. This was not in the report, but I would say that we need multiple smaller meeting spaces similar to the study room in the library. We often have competing interests for that room. You know, people who want to tutor, even for our library programs, we don't have rooms where English for speakers of other languages, but that they can do that tutoring, or that we can do the tutoring with kids grades 1st through 3rd for the reading tutoring. So we don't have, the only storage room we have is the tiny little storage room in the community room. And we have tons of stuff that's currently in storage over at the bunker building. The report said that circulation, it was not wide enough in some areas, and that's, and we didn't bring back as much furniture as we had in the library before. So I think we've got a little bit better circulation than was in the report. And then off-street parking, which is always an issue for people coming to the library. And so these were the design strategies that they listed for the library. And ultimately, I just need
You
the
have a white-
library. What was that?
It's all white.
Oh,
Is
wait.
it? Let's see if I
There
hover
you
over it. Okay, I just need to hover over it, I guess. So these are the design strategies that they listed in the report for solutions for the library. And I need the library board to give me direction for which one or ones we should pursue. And we could have alternate versions of these if you want to talk about different other ideas. But vertical expansion of the library, so to go up. The building was not designed with going up in mind, so there would need to be some construction done to support a second story on the library. But that would be $2.4 to $3.2 million. It was their estimate. Relocation into an existing building would be about 3.3 million to 5.5 million, depending on the modifications required. And then a new building, whether we built it in the current place that it's in or relocating to a new site, would be between 8 and $11 million, it looks like.
Yeah.
So it's all a lot of money. There are certainly ways that we could, I'm going to get out of this again so that I can see your faces as we discuss it. But there are certainly other things that we could do to reduce the costs slightly. But I need some direction to focus on to move in. And if we want to, that one of the, I don't know how much of the report that you read, but in the design pieces, in the relocation piece, it did mention the bunker building as a possibility. So, and I know that I don't know what the pool committee is working on currently.
I would be taking that off your list because that's not going to be available for, it's destined to be a community center and pool and gym and all that stuff. And so and I'm just kind of trying to understand, that's a huge undertaking that we're doing with this exciting thing. And so is this something that the library district is taking on and funding, or is this something that we're expecting the city to do? Or help me out there, because I don't know that we can kind of undergo two, huge expansion projects at once.
So the library district pays for the operating costs for the libraries in Clackamas County. It does not pay for capital construction. Each library, other than Hoodland, got $1 million when the county basically pulled back their funds for libraries when the library district passed. And that $1 million was to go for capital expenditures. And so when the Sandy Library was remodeled, we used that $1 million from the county to remodel it. And when we remodeled the space up at Hoodland, we spent the $250,000 that the county gave us to remodel that. So there is no county money for this. This would be a city effort somehow.
I'm just going to give you the, kind of insights from the council, and, I'm just one person, but I'm one person trying to kind of get us a new community center and pool and all those things. And that's where the demand and the need is and the push is. Not to say this can't be, the next thing on the docket, and these things take years to kind of get planned and all that. So,
Right.
if that's your idea, that's, something to kind of pursue after this is done, but this is going to be a big lift. And the costs are pretty substantial.
Yeah, they're just going to go up. Kathleen Drain.
Yeah, actually, Kathleen, this is a good opportunity to ask you. So one of the needs that I see that Sarah is highlighting here is this need for a bigger community meeting space. When we did the design of the existing configuration, as much space as could be carved out of the footprint was, and the Meyer Memorial Trust actually paid gave us a grant in part because we were creating a community room, which interestingly is not big enough now for what we need. So in the design of the new community center complex, could there be a bigger meeting room included in that would be available for bigger meetings that would not fit in the library meeting, and that would take care of one need. And also it would be wonderful if there were an outdoor covered space, sort of like the old, that funny outdoor gym building that they is ancient from the elementary school, because summer reading programs often attract a huge number of people, and an outdoor covered space as part of the new complex that also could be used for a lot of other things, of course, that would be a very nice synergy as well. And that would help reduce some of the pressure on the building, which cannot now, right, Sarah? It can't handle the old type of summer reading program that we used to have, right? Who knows?
No, yeah. It also, I mean, it can't handle like the spring celebration we just held during COVID, which had 250 people come through. The garden club was there selling their plants, which they're usually outside the library selling plants. And the Y East Artisans did a flower drawing class, and we had our seed library there, right? And books to check out and things like that. So that was 250 people right there. The haunted library for teens is always a huge draw. It's more than 200 teens. Even the teen lock-ins, which we used to do, were too much for our community room. We had to open the entire library for them to use, which gave us more security issues, safety issues with teens running around. We had to make sure we had enough staff and volunteers in the building to watch them, make sure nothing happened. So yeah, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly where we're going with that. Kind of redoing the bunker building and capturing that building alone has about, sorry, dog, my husband just got home. I'm a great watchdog. Anyway, hey, Mike, I'm not on mute, honey. Anyway, there's about 25,000 square feet of space there. We're looking at, utilizing that for, community rooms, classrooms, workshop spaces for, painting and, kitchen, community kitchen thing, all those things. So, fitness room, all that, workout rooms, all that kind of stuff. So I think, Kathleen, just exactly what you said is, I think and it's fairly convenient to kind of walk from the two buildings. I mean, ideally you'd want them all on the same campus, but we're not going to get there yet. But there's definitely going to be the space dedicated to have those events there. There's going to be some covered shelters in the park. There's a park plan below that parcel there by the old track. And there's going to be some covered gazebo and, all sorts of, playgrounds and pump track and things like that for kids and community folks to gather. So I'm really excited about it. We just approved the Parks and Trails Master Plan that we've been working on since 2015. So we just approved it last week by the city council. So I'm thrilled that we can kind of take that and really start implementing some of the projects. So there's kind of the parks component, and that's kind of down below the bunker, what we call the bunker building. And then there's the bunker building itself. And then the things that we're going to build on adjacent to the bunker building for the pool and the gym and things like that. That's where I'm, hoping we go. I'm just one person, and it's going to take some funding options to either find the funding to construct it and or operate and maintain it. My kind of take on that is that we already have a community center and an awesome library program and stuff, and so a lot of this is just kind of getting people into one area, centralizing the staff for the community services and the senior services and the pool and all that. Yeah,
You're suggesting, Kathleen, that the library in your plan, the library doesn't fit in there?
no, we don't have enough space for the whole library, but we do have space for all the community rooms that you're talking about,
Yeah.
event rooms, the summer reading programs and things like that. It may actually free up some room, if you're able to take that community meeting room and stuff, that may free up the space that you have need for your staff office space or, more books and things like that.
Well, I guess you'd have to look at what $10 million, what option would give you the maximum amount of space? If you renovate the existing one, that would be $10 million, or relocation is $10 million. Will relocation give you more square footage?
I mean, so it depends. I mean, if we were to build a new building on the same site, that would be between $8 and $11 million, right? Or a new building on another site, a new building in general for the size of the library that we need. These consultants said that it would be between $8 and $11 million. So, but to go up vertically would be considerably less, but still around $3 million, most likely.
But how does that amount of space in the end give you compared to starting over with $10 million?
Well, I mean, either way, I think we could end up with the same amount of space. But the library is currently just under 12,000 square feet. It's 11,900. So if we were to go up with a full second story, for example, that would be over 20,000 squares. So, yeah. So whether we rebuilt a brand new library or just went up vertically, I think we could end up with the same amount of space.
Okay. Kathleen, Doreen?
Well, but the report was curious because they were saying that if you went up, it would only be on half of the building and it would probably be for administrative space, which to me doesn't make sense. And I would question whether the people involved actually understand what new libraries need, which is a whole separate issue.
It wasn't a whole floor, it was like a mezzanine or something.
Well, that was also, they're saying you could potentially do a mezzanine on the front half of the building, but that doesn't work. There really isn't enough space to do that. But if you were to expand, I would say up on the upper half. At some point, perhaps the space used by the Friends storage area might not be needed for that in the future, and that could become additional, eventually additional study spaces. But I think if you'd go up, you should include an elevator so that you can actually have usable public space as well, if that were to happen. And of course, all of this is contingent on there being any money, which of course there isn't. So
Right.
This is a bit of a pipe dream, but it would make sense to make that pipe dream cheaper rather than more expensive.
Yeah.
And we have to start somewhere.
Yeah,
So we have to start with the dream. So
yeah.
you can't manifest anything without some visioning.
And plus the other expense would be incurred, and I agree going up, just fiscally makes more sense, but we would have to basically find another building to move the library into during construction. And I've been down that road when we first did some of the work on the library and the police station, and you're out of there for probably 6 months to do what they need to accomplish, and then you still got the parking issues. That's a complex problem, and I think even quite a bit more than the 2.5-3 million we're talking about.
Parking, yeah.
Yeah, the park, especially if you're adding on more capacity, your parking is already a huge problem that is not really solvable with
No.
any kind of expansion at that site.
So does that bring you to a new location? If you don't, Kathleen?
I think that's kind of where we're at. I think that the future needs to be a different location. I don't like the idea of putting a bigger library on that same location because that really doesn't solve any of our problems. And then I guess, I mean, we could get more space for offices or whatever, but I think we're going to find we're just going to grow out of that so fast too. And it's going to feel a little clunky to be on 1.5 floors. And just thinking like for longevity, I think we need to do like a different location if we're really.
For longevity, it seems like just doing $10 million. You'd get it longer than just adding on, going up.
I should point out that if the
Back
task
forward.
force that the county, has currently put on hold, but if it does go forward, and I imagine at some point in some form, it will. One of the very questions that was motivating it was how one could build capital programs into the district, or as an alternative to permit, and the county isn't actually sure how the state would feel about this, but just like for the community center rec project that you're talking about, Kathleen, where you may go out and bond over the whole service area, and like Hoodland is doing for its Hoodlands Parks Department, we could potentially have a capital district that is as big as our service area that would permit the creation of, a $10 million revenue bond. We don't know what the rules are on this, but that may be an option in the future. It is possible. And then we could look at the big dream, right? And figure out what the best way to render library services would be and how big it needs to be, and not be penny pinching. So I would say within the next 3 years or so, you'll probably know the answer to that question.
Kathleen Walker, would there be space on the land where the community center would be that could go for the library, or no? It's not big enough.
No, we need every square foot for parking. So, because you have to have so many, and we're already cutting the required parking by quite a bit.
Okay.
Based on what the code is. We think that's a little high, what's being required. And so, yeah, we need to definitely have enough parking, because there's going to be a lot of folks visiting there, plus but I think that if a lot of the activities that you're holding can be held at the community center, that will free up, kind of give you the ability to kind of dedicate more of your footprint to, displays and staff space. I don't know. I think I think it's sad that, that building isn't that old. We're still paying it off, and it was too small for year one. Yeah. And so Bethany probably has a better sense of this than I do, because I wasn't on the council, but what the council's priorities are, she can kind of speak to that based on what the community needs are and how this fits in. I don't know. What do you think, Bethany? Kind of reaching back in your counselor days.
I think it's a big long shot right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of frustration that we're still paying off that building, frustration that it's not big enough, not understanding why, maybe too. So yeah, I think it's a big reach right now.
Actually, I can tell you why, because there wasn't more money back then.
Sure.
So we did what we could do at the time with the money we had. It's that simple,
Yep. And I totally get that. Obviously
yeah, I understand.
I will throw out one other idea, and that is, I don't know what the plan is for the Sandy Grade School, whether that's going to stay there or they're going to find some other spot to put a bigger school. But, you know, if the school district were to, you know, vacate that property, that might be, you know, a possibility or something like that. So just throwing that out there, but that again, that's years away.
Lynn,
Yeah,
did,
and I mean-
did you have something to say? You were muted.
Yeah, I was muted. I guess for the city of Sandy, and obviously the library serves more than the city of Sandy, it is sounds a little bit late, and maybe because I don't know very much about the building of the community center and the pool and any of that. But it certainly is an opportunity now to not make separate decisions, but to talk together, because if you decide to have a big community center, but there's no space for the library, that seems to be a bit of a problem for me. Feels like everybody needs to get together and find out, at least for the city of Sandy part, what goes where, so that I don't know what the budget is for the community center, but all of that money goes there. But the library, well, you have to now wait, but you're serving these people that you can't meet. It's you said this earlier, Kathleen, this is an opportunity to work together. But it seems to be a little bit of a missed opportunity if you're paying for consultants to look at one thing while meanwhile over here, you know, the right hand is doing something else. So I think more consultation earlier in the process would be good.
Yeah, I really agree with Lynn on this, that if you look at the city as, just to take the metaphor and apply a family metaphor to the city, and the different departments, library, community services, transit, et cetera. It's like those, seeing each of those as a child, it's like, okay, well, we're going to meet the needs of one child, but we're not going to talk about the other 4 kids in the family. And as you were talking, Kathleen, about the community center, and I'm thinking, you know, all the parking and this and that, it's like, I hope that the group is involving the transit department in how the transit department, you know, how we can fit into that plan, you know, with the building. But that's a type of thing that is just echoing Lynn's point of, you know, we've got to not treat them as separate departments and entities. You know, let's look at the overall piece, and we've got so much. We've got so many resources and so many great capabilities, and how can we win all the way around, right, and support one another as a family.
I did have one other thing when Kathleen Drain, you were saying, you know, it's kind of a bond issue across the whole service area, and you referenced the Hoodland Park District. The service area is restricted to the Hoodland service area. I'm sure you knew that, but.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, but I'm just using, no, it's just an example of, you know, how fundraising could potentially occur.
Yes, can happen,
yeah. But the community services service district will probably overlap the library service district. So if they go out for funds and create a building with that, and then the library wants to go out 5 years later and again hit exactly the same population to fund a building, I'm not sure that'll sell so well.
No, I don't think so.
It also doesn't sell well if we, you know, load up this. I mean, here's what happened is we had a, you know, a big, huge, almost $200,000 plan. And, you know, it wasn't well managed in its development. And at the end, you know, people were shocked when they came out with the price tag of like almost 70 million, 68 million, something like that. And it was like, whoa, we can't afford that. And so now, you know, and then we're off the rails, the pool closes, and, you know, years go by, and now we're trying to kind of come up with something that is affordable, that isn't, you know, that going to cause everybody to balk. And how do we fund it? And whether that's a parks district or just, you know, some community bonds, or just how do we operate and maintain it? And all those, you know, so adding another whole, you know, and I totally agree with the whole idea, you know, think big, go big or go home, you know, look at all the needs. But, when I look back, and I've been here 35 years, the library, the library got a new building, the police got a new building, Public Works got a new building, and the community center never got, diddly squat. So it is kind of their turn when it comes to kids to get their own room or whatever it is you give kids. But, and I totally understand the idea of kind of thinking big and thinking in the future. And I think, maybe there's potential for that. I'm not saying that there isn't. And I'm, like I said, one person, but I also am very concerned that we don't, load it up too heavy because it just won't get the support. It's like the reason we're doing a community center is because I don't believe we have enough support for just the pool. And so, but if we have a community center where people can do, work out and do, Zumba classes and all these other things and after school, teen activities and all those other things, I'm hoping that brings in enough, votes or whatever to get it supported. And so it does become this, how big is too big to, and yet, too big, and it fails. So just
Yeah,
mindful of those.
It's a double-edged sword. You can go big or go home, or if you go small and you give them the money and like, oh, you're already back again.
Mhm.
Because you grew out of your smaller remodel in a short period of time. So you either go back twice or you go back once and hopefully get the big one.
I mean, and that's what happened with library district funds too, right? Is we asked for the lowest amount that we thought would pass, and we didn't even think it would pass at the time,
Yeah,
but we
yeah.
tried for the lowest amount that had a chance at passing, and it passed. And now 10 years later, it's not enough money to fund most of the libraries in the district. So,
But you can say that it would last for 10. It did do what you said it was going to do.
right. It did. It lasted for the 10 years we expected it to.
And to be clear, I'm advocating more integration of planning than I am going big. Because when you don't have a lot of money, you can still sit around and figure out the best way to allocate the money.
Yeah.
So,
True.
Yeah.
mhm.
I mean, from the beginning with the community center, I was talking about like a teen annex. So there would be a teen center and we could do teen programming from the library there and things like that. So, or the meeting rooms and all of those kinds of things, which would take a lot of stress off of the library, hopefully, and would continue our relationship with the community center. We would be doing joint programming and things like that. So, yeah.
But also, do you have any feeling about the future of what the library is going to look like? I mean, will you be having that many books or to reduce your space and then you'll be able to shift it to what you think you need?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right before the pandemic started, they were publishing more books each year than they ever had. So I don't think book publishing is declining in the way that people thought it would, physical books. More people are checking out digital books, but it's still only maybe 1/3 more than we had before the pandemic. So it's not increasing at the rate that it was expected to even really. I mean, it is popular for sure, and we need to put more money towards it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, especially the Sandy community is growing, right? The city itself is now 12,000 in population, and the surrounding area went up in population as well. All that our service area has gone up in population considerably. And with that growth, I mean, I see us staying probably at the same number of books that we currently have, physical books or physical items. I don't know that we will need increase in space for floor space for items. It's really the meeting rooms and all of the programming pieces and the offices. I see that as a bigger need than space for more stacks.
But people still like their books.
They do.
So, yeah.
Even kids who are surveyed say they prefer a physical book over an ebook. So.
So
Bethany
Sarah,
can probably speak a little bit to that with her kids.
Sarah, what do you need from us now? So
Yeah.
given
you
the
have any
discussion, what were you hoping
Yeah.
for? Or
Yeah.
I was hoping for some direction, but it doesn't sound like I have a clear road ahead of me. I mean, it sounds like either if we can utilize the space in the community center and work with Kathleen to get the programming space that the library will need over there, things like that, that could be a short-term solution, certainly, you know, for the next 5 to 10 years even maybe. But it sounds like, from what I'm hearing from you, that we should plan on an alternate site for the library for the next library build. Does that seem accurate?
Yes,
Mhm.
I would
yeah,
say so.
Yeah, even just from the parking standpoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer because it's a great location. I like that
Yeah.
you can walk there, but
Um,
I
just to
mean,
throw my 2 cents in there. I know I'm sad because I think that long term, a new location is better. Although I love like where physically it's at. I just wish we could create parking spaces,
Well, you-
like
can.
square
You
footage
just-
in the world. But we're not making more land, which sucks. And then thinking about the short-term plan and the community center, and Kathleen Walker, I know you said that like going big is really hard to sell, but I see the 2 needs from the community center and the library as more of a framing challenge. And I feel like that could be more of an area of support if the 2 buildings were able to connect and be like, okay, so the library is also going to be using the space. The library is also going to be using 1 or 2 like more like storage areas. I see that as a point for more people to get on board, because we are a community, and right now there's a disconnect between the 2 areas. And so if we were able to frame it in a way where both groups, both buildings were working together, that fosters a bigger community, that's also an example for the community as a whole, of the center and the library working together. I just think that there's something to tap in there that could support the expansion of the library in a couple years, but also the building or the reworking of the building to be a community center.
Megan, do you mean a physical location of them next to each other?
Maybe. I don't know. I just think of acknowledging that, like, okay, for now, this new community center, like, that needs support and like all the money to get that up and going. And then also having the library help support some of the library's events there, and helping hopefully like everybody working together. That'll show the need for the library when that time is ready. And it would be awesome if they could be right next to each other, but if
'Cause
not,
that would be the perfect,
mhm.
if you had the community room and you're going this way with community services and this way with the library. I mean,
Yeah, perfect. That'd be the best case scenario. But I
Yeah.
think either way, it shows the need.
yeah.
that's actually what they're doing down at what's going to be the new Oak Lodge Library. It is a multi-service complex.
Yeah, I will tell you, this site that we have is just one of the most challenging sites. I mean, if you're familiar with it, first of all, you're up on Pleasant Street and you look down about 6 feet to the parking lot, and then you go down to the pool, and then you go down to the gym, and then you go down to the old elementary school, and then or the middle school, and then you go down to the old bunker building. And there's like 25 feet drop in elevation, at least almost 30-foot drop in elevation from the front of the property to the back of the property.
It is, well, if you're talking to Kathleen about the Oak Lodge, it's like it sounds logical, because when you're offering programs and the library is advertising a program, but you're not going to the library, you're gonna go over here down the street. I mean, it's a little bit of a learning curve.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, maybe you'd have a community center that had all of the things the community center is going to have, and the library and the police department as a community service.
Yeah. I think, did Park Rose do something like that? I think, yeah, a long time ago. You can add more parking spaces at the present location if you want to level some of those buildings in there. I mean,
I'm sorry, my internet went out and I
The
lost you
owners- the
guys
owners might
for
not
that
like
whole thing.
I mean, if they're old buildings, you know, where the UPS building is and that whole strip, make it parking.
Well, I think what I'd like to do is meet with Sarah and just talk about, because what I kind of see is that the library is doing so many things that I would expect the community services folks to be doing. You know, and you guys raised that issue yourselves about, you know, is this a library function or is this a community, you know, recreation program or things like that? And so I guess what I can do is kind of, you know, let Sarah and I meet and just talk about kind of what the needs are collectively for community services, programs, teen space. We've got all that identified in the community center that we're planning. And so, and I guess, like I said, you know, if the Sandy grade school, which is actually on some flat ground, ever vacates that property, that would be the place to go. There's, you know, there's a couple other options that, you know, are not available at this point. None of those are available at this point, but the one thing I will tell you is that that area is part of the urban renewal district. And so it does give us some fund, a little bit more funding capabilities than we would have if we were down like, you know, by the movie theater or something like that.
Right.
So I'll plan on meeting with Sarah and just kind of see how we can collaborate more with the needs and make sure that we're getting those needs identified as much as possible with our existing effort.
That sounds great. Thank you,
Okay.
Kathleen.
Okay, did you want to talk about programming?
Yeah, so I've got slides again. So let me share my screen. All right, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So, as you know, the Sandy and Hoodland libraries offer enrichment programs for all ages. About 75% of the programs at Sandy are supported by the Friends of Sandy Library, and 100% at Hoodland are supported by Friends of Hoodland Library. And that's a function of our budgets. Ultimately, the Hoodland Library service area just doesn't raise enough money for their current building, their collections, and programming. So in the strategic plan, as you know, as you read, Satisfy Curiosity is in there. So our goal for that is all ages will have creative hands-on educational and entertainment programming. So here are the kids' library programs pre-pandemic, and I'm not going to belabor it by reading everything out, but a lot of them are like the story times are twice a week. A lot of them are once a week. A lot of them were 4 times a month. So not quite once a week or twice a month. So we had a lot of kids programming. And then we had a lot of special programs, which I didn't put in here. These are just the programs that were kind of our slate that we had every year, right? And then we had special programs, especially with partners. So Hawk Watch International, for example, has come for the last few years to do their program Raptor Rendezvous. And I think the last program at Sandy had something like 90 people at it. So, and that is over capacity of our community room. So don't tell the fire district. So those are the kids programs that we kind of do every year. Here are our teen programs. So we had ultimately 3 programs a week for teens regularly. And then we had a few more that were once a month, a few that were twice a year. And then like the free comic book day, which was in the kids as well. It's a joint program for teens and kids. the summer reading program, of course, is for all ages, really. And then we do special programs for teens as well, like the career fair, creative writing programs, mini pumpkin decorating and ginger house making, all kinds of things like that. So those were the teen programs we were doing pre-pandemic. And then we had a few family programs that I would call out specifically as family programs, although families, of course, come to all of our kids' programs, or most of them, a lot of them come to some of the teen programs. Most of the teen programs we keep at specifically teens, like the Anime Club and the Makerspace and the Game Factory, but Free Comic Book Day is for families. Summer reading programs are for families. But the Poetry Slam, the Library Coffee House, and then Chinese New Year and Dia de los Muertos, I would say were family programs. And then our adult programming that we did pre-pandemic. Our English for Speakers of Other Languages tutoring. We had multiple tutors teaching multiple students. So we had paint night once a month, book clubs. We had 2 to 3 book clubs each month, photography group. And then we had special programs once a month that so our goal was to have a special program once a month at Sandy for adults. So there's just a few of the programs we've had in the past on a monthly basis. And then the Hoodlin Library, it was more when the friends felt like they could support programs, like we did an author series with Brian Doyle and Jane Kirkpatrick, and a wellness series. So the Hoodlin is a little bit more sporadic. We do them occasionally for adults. And then our programs during the pandemic. So we started doing take and makes, as you know, once a month each for adults, teens, and kids. We have a take and make. Those have been super popular, and we're continuing with those, even though people don't have to pick them up curbside anymore. They can come into the library to pick them up. But we're still not doing in-person programs in our community room. The only exception to that is the blood drive with the American Red Cross, which we're holding once a month. But most of these programs are outdoors, like the spring celebration was outdoors in the farmers market area, the story time in Mining Park, the teen paint night, all of those programs have been outdoors. And we did have one tutor that was meeting with an ESOL student. They both were vaccinated and felt comfortable meeting, but nobody else has picked up on that. So. And then we have the asynchronous program. So we're recording live story times to post on Facebook. We're currently recording the story times in Mining Park, and those are really fun to watch. But before that, Monica and Robin and Sue were recording story times for kids and families to watch on Facebook. And then Katie was doing a newsletter for the kids at Vista Apartments on a monthly basis. And then we have virtual programs that are currently going on. The book groups are mostly meeting virtually, although I think a few of them met outdoors in the nice summer months. We have photography group meeting virtually, knitting group, and read to the dog happening virtually. And I'm not sure what programs look like post-pandemic because, we're seeing less foot traffic. We're not sure of the use patterns. Teens haven't returned after school. Although I do think some staple programs will be with us probably forever. Story times are a great example of early literacy programs that are a staple for libraries, and I don't see those going away anytime soon. I do think our after school teen programs, once we can hold programs, will start back up. And that is ultimately to try to wrangle the teens into a space where they can be focused on something and not disrupt patrons. The Vista Apartments programs, I think, are likely to continue. And our monthly adult program series at Sandy were very popular. So I see those staying. Some programs, which in the past were staple, may not be anymore. Coffee House, the attendance was sort of dwindling even pre-pandemic. And right now we don't have a good space to hold it. I don't know if you've been in the library recently, but we have moved our new books out in the library. So And that is in part of the space that coffee house used to take up. So we don't have a very large space for coffee house currently. And, we really enjoyed having the music in the library. I think setting it up in the community room would sort of defeat the purpose a little bit of enjoying the music in the library while people are using the library. And then our Saturday afternoon kids club, it was an attempt to try to bring people to the library on Saturdays, which is oddly one of our quietest days. Most retail outlets tell you Saturday is crazy for them, but the Sandy Library is not busy on Saturdays, and it never really drew a crowd. So I don't know that we would continue with it. So, but that's as far as I really know about programming. It's hard to really tell what's going to happen. We are certainly going to, we have some programs like local history programs, for example, are extremely popular at the library, the gardening programs. So, once we can hold programs, we would likely start with those things that we know already drew people to the library and see how they went ultimately. So I'm not sure, Kathleen, go ahead, Kathleen Walker.
Kathleen,
So I know that, for example, the teen paint night ended up getting moved to the ant farm. And I'm just, because it was pouring rain there at the farmer's market, I believe. And so, and it was very successful. They had like, I don't know, 28, I don't know how many they had, but anyway, it was, and so I'm just wondering, have we kind of been able to collaborate with some of those partners that do have really cool spaces, like the coffee house, having a coffee house there at the ant farm or something like that might be a good avenue to kind of partner with the ant farm.
Well, they still hold their own First Friday programs, which generally have music. So, I think when we were doing First Friday and they were doing First Friday, people would sort of go back and forth between the two. And I know that they need their fundraising events as well. So, they're a great partner for sure, but I would not want to step on their fundraising efforts ultimately. And maybe because they're continuing to do it, that supplies the need for the community.
Well, and I'm also just curious about, it just seems like our community center has been, huge space, tons of opportunity, and it's been closed all this time. And, everybody's out in the restaurants and the stores and this and that. And, the only things closed are, community centers and library, the library is open, but I'm just kind of curious about whether can we have some of these events at the community center?
Once we're comfortable having events indoors, I'm still not real comfortable having events indoors and gathering that many people in a space, right? I certainly wouldn't want the library to be a super spreader event for the Sandy community. I don't know. Once we feel comfortable meeting, sure, we could. But my problem is holding library programs elsewhere doesn't bring people into the library ultimately, right? And most people who come to library programs also enjoy coming to the library and like to peruse the books and check things out. So we miss out on that serendipitous sort of event if we hold our programs at the community center, which would be the same issue if with the new community center, even though it's so close. You just have to walk, across 2 streets. And hopefully people would, but it's sort of difficult for me to hold programs elsewhere just because there's not that library use then, which is part of the point in holding programs at the library is to bring people into the library to see what we have and to check items out and to do all of those things at the same time.
Well, it goes.
Look at the art exhibit, that's currently going. People back in the coffee house days, people are picking up holds, people are Sure, they're socializing and they're enjoying a great program, but they're also browsing in the book nook,
Mhm.
which ultimately leads us to funding,
Right.
right? Thank you, friends.
Yes.
Well, it just goes back to, if it's a library program, why am I not going to the library?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've been doing more programs out in the community, so people are getting more used to it, I think. The Unidos event up in the Hoodland area is a great example of that. You know, it was a partnership, and we've got lots of partners that we work with, which is great.
Mhm.
And, you know, and some of those events are some of our most successful, like the spring celebration. I mean, it was during COVID, so I mean, I'm not sure what it would have been like without that, but it was outdoors and people were super excited to have an event, right, to go to. And the 110th anniversary events were very successful, and I think that was the same thing. People were excited to have something to do that was outdoors and safe and all of those kinds of things that they felt comfortable doing. So,
And I think when you do events out of the library, they really have to be co-branded. Libraries, just by their nature, are trusted institutions, and it matters that it's the library partnering with another community organization. And I don't think that's a piece that you would ever want to lose.
mhm.
Mhm. Okay, do you have anything else?
Kathleen Walker, was that what you were thinking about and talking about the programs that happen at the library, or? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Mhm.
So do you have any old business you want to talk about? Or anybody have any old business?
Kathleen Drain, do you have an LDAC update?
Oh, very simple. So the September meeting was canceled. Next meeting is October 25. And the purpose of the meeting is to discuss the fiscal reports for 2017 and 18 and 2018 and 19, which had been deferred for so long, well, due to COVID and waiting. Just when COVID hit, we had just approved some new forms that were to be used by the libraries to fill out to present their financial and performance data. And then COVID hit and the world stopped. So we are to do that on October 25th. And there are some issues that have been raised. And the other thing I wanted to report is that I am doing a little bit of research on in connection with trying to get Hoodland some extra money for its housing of the library.
Thank
We
you.
don't know whether it'll work or not, but we're
Yeah.
starting the work on it.
Okay.
And that's
It's what I've seen at Hoodland is they're outgrowing their space, aren't they?
Mhm.
that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
The funding that comes to Hoodland cannot support anything else.
Mhm.
And the only thing we could probably do, unless eventually the county does actually build a community center for the Hoodland for the Hoodland community, right? That might incorporate a library, but I wouldn't hold your breath
Yeah.
on that one, is possibly getting them to pay the rent,
Mhm.
Yeah,
which would release a little bit of money,
a little
but
bit of money.
not a lot.
Mhm.
But some of the programs that they've offered up there, we've run into this that I have attended, especially the kids programs. They're flowing out the doorways.
Yeah.
And
That's where if you can get the parks
Mhm.
passed, possibly you can get a covered building
like that
to hold that kind of
Mhm.
event. That again, that synergy that we're trying to do in the city of Sandy, potentially do up in Hoodland. But any money that we get for Hoodland, it's not going to be a lot of money
Right. Right.
if we get any.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, but we'll try.
But
Yeah.
Jerry's right. The things I've attended, everybody's standing and you're out the door and peering
Yeah.
through the hallway.
Yeah.
And I did go to one where they had been at Sandy the day before, and they said, I think you might have more people here.
Yeah.
It certainly looks like it because of the way Hoodland's configured, but
Yeah.
I remember when Brian Doyle
Have
spoke
you all
up at
cons-
Hoodland.
have you-
Go ahead, Kathleen Walker.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, I remember when Brian Doyle was up at Hoodland, all the seats were full in the community room. People were sitting outside the doors of the community room about 3 tiers back, and it was, yeah. If we
Mhm.
would have had a fire, I would have been worried
Yeah.
for everybody's lives ultimately.
And it is the goal of the establishing a park district is to be able to be eligible for grant monies that would eventually allow us to build a community center.
Mhm.
It's a heavy lift.
Yeah, it's all tied together.
All tied together, and there's no money.
Okay. Anybody?
Holding some of these events at Wildwood under those gazebos.
They're not free.
No.
So
And Wildwood charges for parking, I think even for $5 per car to park in Wildwood. Yeah.
And it's,
So-
it's just enough of a deterrent for people, but you pay for the outdoor. I mean, I happen to think it's a fantastic deal. However, it's still money that's generally not budgeted that you have to, pay for that space, and then people pay for their parking, unless they're retired and they have the parks pass. But
Pass.
And there's a lot of paperwork involved to rent a space up there also.
no, that's pretty easy.
What?
That's pretty easy.
Oh, it is it?
Yeah, yeah.
I-
You can just do it all online now. It's pretty simple.
Oh, okay.
Pretty nice.
I've been
And they are
talking
great
to
spaces,
old
frankly,
school.
but it's not free to the community because it's federal.
Because, yeah, federal.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, which is the reason for a park district,
The reason,
so you can have a park and not have to pay.
yeah. But it's really, it's so much less about the park, although that's important. It really is about local control.
Mhm.
Being able, for the Sandy folks, years ago, there was a building there that was known as the Women's Club building, and then it was known as the Dorman Center, and the county basically rented it to the Women's Club for, peanuts. And but the building, it was old and it was in disrepair. And so there was a major campaign mounted to try and get enough money to fix it. And of course, it's a government building, so it has to be fixed a certain way. They did not meet the goal. Had they been a government entity or a different kind of entity, they would have been able to go for different kinds of grant money and possibly could have repaired the building. Instead, it was torn down. So now it's just a paved lot overrun with stuff. So, that's where, again, we're doing it the hard way, I think, coming back in to repair something that could have been done back then, but
Mhm.
just an ongoing problem.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else?
Just a quick staff update. Unfortunately, the city council did not make it a priority to get the bookmobile for the library. So we were not successful in getting ARPA funds from the city. So, we have all of our grant materials sort of together. The difficulty is getting a grant large enough that, because it's $130,000, it's not peanuts, but most grants are for libraries are $5,000 to $10,000. So it's rare for a larger grant to come around. So, but I will keep looking for possible grants and other avenues that we might be able to get the bookmobile with. So that was my only staff update.
Okay. Well, with nothing else, I will adjourn. So
Thank you.
nice to see everybody. I think
Yeah.
everybody's here. Yeah.
Thanks,
And it's
everyone.
late for you. It's 10:30 for you, right? You can go to bed now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10:30. The whole, I'm in a corner of the house because everybody else is in bed.
Sarah, are you envisioning that there'll be a meeting in November, or do we need to for the, to meet the bylaw requirements?
I think we do need to meet in November and December to meet the bylaw requirements for this year, this calendar year. So I do anticipate that we will meet, although they may be very short meetings depending on how many agenda items come up between now and then.
Mhm.
Right, well, you can invite Tyler for next time.
Right. So I do have my note, and I will make sure Tyler comes to our next meeting so we can chat about, like, I can't even remember what it is now, but I know Tyler needed to talk to us. So I will make sure Tyler comes to the next meeting. So,
Okay.
all right.
Thank
Well,
you.
until then, happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah, yes. All
Thank
right.
you, everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Be well.